Hi guys, so update on my experience so far attending the phlebotomy program. I'm going to talk about the first 2 weeks and what happened so far. So the first day of class, I got dressed in my scrubs, I grabbed my backpack and all my paperwork I knew I was going to need to turn in. We already had a day prior to class to bring in paperwork and to make sure we did it right and see what we may have missed. Some papers she let us turn in on the first day of class. We mostly just went over the syllabus, like what's expected of us, what time we stay for lectures, what time we stay for the labs and whatnot, class schedules, test days, field trips, how many hours we should have, etc., etc. We did some work on a computer to schedule when we would do our clinical trials at our local facilities and hospitals once we were done with our first 4 weeks of schooling. We also have to sign up for our graduation certificates at completion. I think that it was like $10. She would give out the temporary ones after all is done, but we will receive the real ones in the mail in 8 weeks by the state, I believe. And then I believe we can apply to take the state test to become actually licensed. So this class is only a stepping stone for the certificate only. So we talked about the chapters we would go over in our 5th and 4th edition phlebotomy books. We did chapters 1, 2, 3, 5, 8 on the introduction and history of phlebotomy and healthcare, safety, preparedness, infection control, the body systems related lab tests, orientation to clinical sites, and then we did a pop quiz to see what medical terms in phlebotomy or just medical terms in general to see what we heard before. We watched a history video and what color codes mean in the workplace. Not every hospital uses the same colors or the same meanings. We went over how to access our resources of what's going to help us know what subjects to focus on for the upcoming test on Tuesdays, how to access our grades. She gave us some more paperwork to keep, like some vocabulary words to study, some medical equipment topics we would pick and give a presentation on in the future. We talked about when we would get a chance to shadow some coworkers or her previous students that she taught. And then we discussed the expectations of clinicals. We all had to have 10 clinical shifts. There were a few different times, different location to report to, but we all had to make sure we at least had a 3 a.m. to 11 a.m. shift so that we can get the experience of overnight shifts because the bulk of the work is during this time. We went over a packet with the different tubes we'd be using or encounter as a phlebotomist. Not every hospital or inpatient or outpatient facility or wherever, a phlebotomist may work, we don't use all the same tubes. But the worksheet covered the main tubes we would encounter and what they yield, what kind of tube tests they were used for, their additives inside. It all depends on what you're going to need at that workplace or whatever you're doing. After that, we went on break for a bit to get something to eat. Took me a minute to get back because there were so many cars in front of me, and this one car was holding everyone up because they waited to go when all the fucking traffic came. Then I went to McDonald's, which took me also forever to get out because they also they were so goddamn slow. I don't know what McDonald's be having going on. I don't know, they be understaffed or what. Once we all got back, we were gonna start with the lab part of the day. We pulled out fake arms, some sharp containers that we put in the needles in. She gave us our own personal rubber tourniquets, a tray with what we would work with in our day-to-day lives with tubes, gauze, different kinds of needles, transfer devices, alcohol, prep pads, gloves, and whatever we needed for blood collection. She warned us if we threw the needles away in the trash, like the regular trash cans, we would lose points as a whole. She told us one of her classes did it. I think they throw away 3 damn needles. That's crazy. The needles have safety covers on them once they're discarded, but still, it's a safety hazard for the janitors or whoever's picking up the trash. Y'all don't judge me, but during the second week, I accidentally threw away a lancet away. If you look up, you'll see what I'm talking about. But we had searched for it, but we could not find it. So maybe I unconsciously threw it away in the sharpest bin, but we couldn't find it at all. But even if even if somebody would have found it, they couldn't hurt themselves with it because the way the lancet is set up, when you click it, the blade shoots out so fast when it's used for cutting, it goes immediately back in there, so it's not gonna come out. But even still, but we never found it, so I guess I put it in the right bin or whatever, child. Lancets, they're usually you use them for babies, or you use them on finger sticks. You ever got you went somewhere, you get your blood taken, and they shoot stick you with this little tiny device. That's what those are, but typically they're harmless, honestly, once they're retracted. But we pretty much got to play with the mannequins, and then we got used to the different kinds of equipment until it was time for us to go. On day 2, we got started with the first set of chapters on our planners for the week. We started off with the history. She talked a little bit about everything we're supposed to cover and some stories that she had to tell us and whatnot. But the week went on as planned, and then we took our first exam. I passed it. I think most everybody did. The same thing for the second week happened. I passed that test too. We learned more chapters, more vocabulary words. We did our shadowing and reported back to the class on what we saw and what we experienced. When I went for my shadowing, I did the 5 a.m. to 7 a.m. one. I shadowed a previous student she taught and went to different rooms after getting her car and tray ready. She announced herself before she entered. She told them the standard blood collection procedure, and then she turned on the lights. She palpated their veins or in their like AC space or like it's called antecubital fossa, but it's basically like the little bend in your arm that they take bloods from, the median vein. But if she couldn't get any blood from the vein, she would go in like their hands, which is called like the dorsal veins. And a lot of her patients we visited were like elderly, so their veins weren't too good to get out of their arms. So she opted for the hands. Like you couldn't really get too much blood from them in that area. We probably did about like 10 patients, I want to say, while I was there. A few a few were young patients, probably like in their 30s or 40s, but mostly were like older. Some patients were awake, some were unconscious. Some patients we had to put on PPE. I think probably like only 2 of them we did that with. PPE is like personal protective gear, because like they were sick, so we gotta put on gear before we take their blood. She would dispose the equipment in the correct order, get like a brand new pair of gloves. Every patient use hand sanitizer, every patient change. They were all mostly pretty much like polite. But she said one patient who was like, I guess, like unpleasant until I left, so I won't have to like be berated along with her, I guess. But overall, she was very sweet. She had a lot of work to do since it was just her until like the next set of people comes in to help. But I think she had to do about like 36. Like, oh my goodness. The workload was a lot, especially depending on how fast you can get your specimens, because some patients took longer to draw because of their veins or how many tubes they needed on them. But it definitely gave me an inside look of what to expect in the future for my clinical trials. After that, I had left, and then I went to class around 3:30, and I reported what I saw, what I did inspect to see. Then we listened to my other classmates' experience on their different shift change. Later on this week, we went on a field trip to check out the lab at our local hospital, along with other departments and what tubes and tests they use. It was very informative. We got to see some specimens. We got to see the inside of like a breast and the inside of it, what it looked like, all the glands and stuff. Pretty interesting stuff. It was a very informative overload of how like our work life would go. But overall, it's very cool. It's pretty cool. Then we went back to the class, and then we studied for the rest of the week. Leading up to test day, I passed it again. This week, we did chapters 4, 6, 7, 9, 10 on medical terminology, abbreviations, the cardiovascular system, PT spec requirements, venipuncture routine and equipment, and lastly, the dermal capillary lesson. But that's all I have so far to report on. Thank you guys for listening and watching, and be sure to check out update on week 3 and 4. Sorry, I could not remember, child. Anyways, bye.
Everybody be able to see. So we all know what our order of draw is. I gave you the papers, right?
The blue one first, is that
Correct, unless it's blood cultures. So here, Jesus,
okay?
sorry, erase that.
I'm gonna stop. Well, cat, action.
So your first in the order of draw will always be the sterile, and blood cultures are sterile. You have a pediatric that holds about 1 to 3 ml, because you don't want to draw a lot of blood on a child or a baby. And then you have an anaerobic and an aerobic. Aerobic is air loving, anaerobic is non-air loving. So out of the 2 of these, which one do you think would go first? Aerobic. Because for instance, if you're using a butterfly needle, where's all that air gonna go? It's gonna go into the anaerobe, and you don't want oxygen in there. It's a whole different set of bugs. So that will be your next in the order of draw. Or that's your first. Your next one is gonna be a blue top tube. Now the exceptions with this blue top tube is that it is first in the order of draw, behind the blood cultures. Right?
Yes.
I'm having a brain fart.
No, you're right.
Don't get that in recording.
All right, stop.
So it's okay. So the blue top, there are many exceptions. It is first in the order of draw behind the cultures. It is a 9-to-1 ratio of anticoagulant to the blood. It's specifically designed to hold this much blood. You see the line on there. This is the only tube that has to be filled. And this is the tube for coag. APTTs, PTs, D-dimers, fibrinogens, anything that has anything to do with clotting factors. So that would be your first in the order of draw. Then you have your serum tubes.
Tiger tube.
Well, you have a plain red, you have a tiger, and then you have a gold. Now the tiger and the gold are very similar. The only thing different is that one is bigger than the other. And it depends on your instrumentation at the facility that you work at, what it is they're going to use. These all have clot activator in them. They will start the cascade process of the clotting. So you want these to clot. If you look inside them, you could see the little speckles. That is your clot activator. So you want to make sure that you mix it all up, okay? So these would be in the next order of draw. And then you have a lithium heparin. There's another green one, but I don't have any. It's like a forest green.
For the troponins.
This can be used for troponin too. It's just this is a lithium heparin, and the other one is a sodium heparin. This is the one that's most popular in the labs for chemistries. And this has lithium heparin, so it will stop the clotting process. And then when it's spun, cells weigh more than the gel, so as the G-force is spinning it, the gel will go up, and what you're going to have is plasma, because it has a clot activator, clot inhibitor. So this would be plasma. This would be serum, because you want it to clot, and this would be plasma.
Is the red and the yellow, the red and the green, interchangeable?
No.
Okay.
Nope. Some tests specifically only require serum. Other tests will require plasma. Okay? So then your next one is the lavender tube. Are you recording my face? Don't do that.
Oh, sorry.
This is the next in the order of draw, and this is a hematology test. It is a CBC. This and the green is the most popular ones that you're going to run into. This is the EDTA, and it is a clot prohibitor. You don't want your specimen to clot. So this is your 1, 2, 3, 4th in the line. Going back to this blue top, now this is just a smaller volume. This is a 1.7 or 1.8, and this is a 2.7. So depending on whether it's a child or you're limited to the amount of blood that you can obtain, you'll be able to use one of each of those. And then the last in the order of draw is your gray top tube. This has a powder in it, potassium oxalate, and this is a clot inhibitor. You do not want this specimen to clot either. And the special instructions or the special considerations for this one is it has to be the last in the order of draw. You have to have the tourniquet off for at least 2 minutes, and it has to be on ice and delivered to the lab within 30 minutes. Now, a lot of people will ask, why this order of draw? So the only way I can really explain it is by showing you. If this additive, with the puncture of the needle going in the top, if this additive by some strange magic feat gets on the needle and then we draw this next and we don't have to have any of these, the additive that's in here will not affect the gray top tube. However, if you do it backwards, this additive, if it gets into any one of these tubes, it could be detrimental to the specimen, and it will give you false results. And these, of course, have to be sterile. And these are aseptic. I feel like I'm forgetting something. All right. So we have a vacutainer, which is a 21 gauge vacutainer, and we have a black one, which is a 22. Which of the ones is the smallest of them?
21.
22. This is the biggest. It's okay.
Alright.
The bigger the number, the smaller the gauge, right?
Yes,
Well, the smaller the needle.
Yes, that's what I meant.
yes, yes. And this one, it is a butterfly, but this is a 25 gauge needle. And here's another blue needle. That would be a 23. And then you have a butterfly, which is 25, and you have a 21 gauge butterfly. And you have a 22 gauge butterfly. They come in all sorts, all colors and all sorts. But I'm gonna show you now some of the technique, how to use all of this stuff. Walk into the room, knock, knock. Hi, I'm from the lab, I'm here to get some blood from you. And then you're gonna wash your hands, right?
Yep.
Then you're gonna, excuse me, my name is Patty. I'm from the lab. I'm here to get some blood from you. Can I see your armband, please? Can you verify your name and your date of birth? Jamie Wildman. Date of birth is 6/1984. Matches, and I'll bring you some tickets tomorrow or the next day, so you can see the orders, what they look like. All right, so that'll. Huh?
So sorry. If it ever happens that it's not matching, you're going back to the nursing for them to figure it out.
Correct. You do not ever draw anybody if it doesn't match.
Mhm.
And if they have it placed on their chest, no. If it's on the bedside table, no, you do not draw it. You have to have it on their person. So then you're gonna wash your hands, put your gloves on, apply the tourniquet. See how I've got my hands here and I've got it twisted in my fingers to give it some, pull it through, palpate your vein, figure out which one is gonna be the best one that you're gonna use. Alcohol. Don't just go like that. Put some strength behind it and actually clean some cells off that skin. Pull the stick. Now, you have to inspect the needle before you put it, you use it. So before you use it, you have to inspect it. So if we take the cap off and we look, and we're like, oh, it looks okay, and then we go to pull the safety down. Do you see how close I came to that needle?
Yeah.
Okay, so you don't want to inspect the needle until you pull the safety down and you're ready to use it. Take it off. Yep, it looks good. Anchor. Insert. Now see my fingers right here? I got my hand against the arm, so my hand is gonna go with the arm, and I'm using my fingers and my thumb to push the arm, to push the tube on there. And then when I'm done, I pull the tourniquet off. I'm gonna go backwards now. I'm gonna pull the bottom of the tube with my thumb.
You put the tube with the cap?
Bounce the depth and the direction.
Okay.
Okay? So that is a vacutainer. And vacutainer with a butterfly is sort of the same thing. You have your needle, you have your jacket, attach it, clean the arm, your wings, see the grippy side of the wings? You want to put those on your fingers. Take this off, insert. Now at this point you can let it go if you're comfortable with that. If the patient is compliant, they'll be okay. So then you put the tube on, and you can see it's going. These tubes are all vacuum sealed, so it's going to suck out as much blood as the
vein will get.
Well, not the vein, the tube, until the tube's vacuum runs out. Okay? So then you undo your tourniquet.
And you have to fill them up to where?
It'll stop. It'll stop sucking
Okay.
when it's reached its level. So then if you look at this tube or this needle, you'll see a little black button there. Can you come on over here and see it? See the little black button right there?
Mhm.
Okay, so that is the safety device. So you're gonna put the gauze over the needle and you're gonna press that button and listen. It gets pulled right directly into the sheath so there's no open needles, okay? If you didn't do that, and I'll show you, get rid of this. Okay, so it's in there, and you took the tourniquet off, and if you pulled this out, see it dripping? That's what it's gonna drip. But then you're fumbling with everything to try and get that safety done, and you wanna try to get it before it even comes out of the skin. Some people don't understand that. Okay. All of these things you can reuse while we're here. You can reuse this multiple times for one evening. You can use it to stick 5 days. You can still keep it as a vacutainer, but you're gonna take this off and you're gonna put it on a syringe. This way, you're not pulling back at the vacuum of the tube. You're gonna pull back at your own speed. So you're not dependent on the vacuum in that tube to maintain the fluid flow. Insert, and you're gonna gently pull back. You can see it's going in. See it? He's got some clots. Pop your tourniquet, set this down. No pressure, no pressure. Safety, pressure, all right? So then, it's tricky with this too. You're gonna unscrew the needle and you're gonna put the transfer device on it and you're gonna flip it over. Because if you put a tube on that, what's the first thing it's gonna suck in?
Air.
Air, very good. And if you're using a blue tube, that air will prohibit it from filling to its max. So you're gonna turn it over and it sucks it in. These are expired. I don't think it's gonna go all the way up, but anyways. And this you do with the same as the order of draw as if you were poking him in the arm. Oh, so expired. Then you throw this whole thing in the sharps. But we're gonna reuse this and we're gonna reuse this. All right, so what else do I need to show you? Let's see, syringe. This is a different kind of butterfly and I'll show you why. This is gonna be a vacutainer butterfly, right? Because it's got the jacket on it. So we're gonna go through the motions. The grippies are on here. We're going to insert. We're gonna put a tube on it. And it's filling up. But the difference in this butterfly, which is why they don't use them very often anymore, is if I pull it out, there's a little bend where you can feel it at the bottom here. You have to pull it out, hold it, pull down the tubing, and then safety it. So it's very hazardous. So we don't even buy those anymore. And the last one is a syringe draw, which you would take a regular needle, okay, so you're gonna wanna try to loosen the plunger in there because it will stick. Clean safety, inspect, anchor, insert, and now I'm holding it. You see where my fingers are on the bottom? If I raise it up here and they move, what do you think is going to happen? Yeah. So you rest your fingers and anchor it. So if they move, you move. So it's less trauma. Pull back on the needle or the plunger and it fills up. No pressure, no pressure, pressure, safety. Okay? And then what are we going to do with this then? Transfer device.
So you would go in the same order even though the air is at the top of the syringe?
If I did like this, and I put this on here, it's going to suck all the air. And that means this will not fill to what it's supposed to be.
Yeah, but when you flip it upside down.
When, yes, it goes, all the air goes up to the top so that you're only sucking the blood from the bottom.
Yeah.
Right.
But the tubes that don't get air at all.
Oh, no, these are the only ones that are making a difference for air or non-air loving.
So it doesn't matter.
Right.
Okay.
The only thing you want to make sure of is that you don't introduce any extra air to these tubes.
Okay.
Because it won't fill to the line. If you look right here on the tube, you'll see a little etched line. That is the fill point. If it's any less than that, they're all right here. Go ahead and look. If it's any less than that etched line on there, it will be rejected.
Any less?